So today is August 9th. It's actually the day before my birthday and 2 days after my son's birthday. So we have had a crazy couple of weeks. And I have to admit that I'm a little devastated. We did go on about a 5 or 6 day vacation, and we expected the garden to get a little crazy, but when we got back, some circumstances occurred and we were unable to get out to the garden between work and some personal stuff. And so this is what happened. And the other issue was the electric fence had gotten unplugged, and I'm not exactly sure why it wasn't plugged back in. But so between the weeds and the deer, our garden is basically ruined at this point. It's just really devastating after working as hard as we've worked. This is what the deer did to our Brussels sprouts. It's just, like I said, just disturbing. Our cabbages are still growing. That's good. We still have some cabbages. We still have some tomatoes. This is like a jungle in here. But you can see that there's some really big squash plants with some big squash on them, so at least that's saved. So what I'm going to end up doing today is just kind of trying to salvage a little bit of this. There's around the big squash plants where there's squashes, I'm going to try to actually pull up some weeds, and our tomato plants are done. The deer have laid waste to the corn. I don't know if you can see this, but there are no corn plants left, not one. Now out here where Phil planted his field corn, there's a really big whole thing of corn out there. So I'm actually going to go out there today too and maybe try and harvest some of that stuff. But that's the plan for today. So I'll be back in a minute. Oh, also today, and we'll videotape this too, I'm going to be making some sauerkraut with some of the cabbage that we have. So I'll show you guys how to do that. Got a nifty little thing that Phil got me for Mother's Day last year. I've been out here about an hour and a half, and it really doesn't look that much different, honestly. But you can see I cleaned out around all the squash plants, some of the tomato plants. I actually harvested the cabbages and the kale and some of the Brussels sprouts that were left. And then I cleaned out around the some of these tomatoes in here. Phil had planted just some random tomato plants. And as I was weeding, I actually found them. So I got a few tomatoes off there and kind of got them saved from the undergrowth. This is what I call salvage weeding at this point, because we're not going to be able to really do much else with this garden, I don't think, because it just got too out of control and the deer ate so much of it. I think I'm going to plug in the electric fence tonight so that hopefully I can protect the remainder of the squash from the deer. I accidentally pulled up a tomato plant while I was weeding, so it had some yellow tomatoes on it, so I figure I'll just try and ripen those up at the in the windowsill as we do. Now I'm walking now to the other garden. I'm walking to the other garden. This is the field corn garden that had pole beans. With it, the deer have eaten all of the pole beans, but I'm going to see if I can salvage some of the corn. You can tell a big difference between field corn and the corn that we planted over here. The corn we planted over here just really didn't grow that well. And then when it did grow, the deer ate every last ear of corn off of the stalks. I kind of feel like right now, like there's gonna have a kid walk out of here going, "He wants you too, Malachi." But yeah, I don't even see corn on here yet, on these things yet. Got a lot of corn stalks, but no corn. How bizarre is that? There's one corn. One little corn. Well, the good news is that's one less thing I have to do on this Sunday afternoon, because there's just not going to be any corn harvesting, as there's no corn. The beans that Phil planted to grow up along these plants just got totaled by the deer. I mean, just absolutely totaled by the deer. And then he'd also planted some squash and stuff in here. I see a squash flower in there, so that must be growing. I don't see any actual squashes though. So, all right. Well, I guess here we go. I'm going in, guys. Seeing what's in here. See, here's the bean plant. It's pretty, but no beans. The bean plants are really pretty. They look, well, honestly, it looks like the illustrations from the Jack and the Beanstalk books that we used to read when we were kids. Look at this. This is, angle down here. See how this grass right here is all matted down? That's because the deer sleep in here. Thanks, deer, for ruining my garden. Ooh, I see a corn. Aha! It's a corn! Let's harvest it. Yeah, that's what it needed. I just needed to come further in. There's a bunch in here. Okay, on that note, I'm going to let you go so I can harvest this corn. Goodbye. So this is our harvest from today. Okay. We, of course, I did the weeding earlier, and we have some corn here that we got from the field corn garden. So here in a second, I'm going to have Lee open up one of these corns, and we'll take a look and see what it looks like.
Corn.
Say hi, Lee.
Hi. Maybe this corn.
I got to get this to go right. There we go. Okay. All right, there's Lee. He's 16 and a licensed driver now. Woot woot.
Oh, no, that's not edible.
What do you mean it's not edible? That's totally edible. Lee. That's totally edible. So with the field corn, you don't want to harvest it when it's fully grown because it's too dry and difficult to eat, but when it's a little bit younger, you can eat it. Apparently, Lee doesn't think it's too bad because he's going to town on it.
It just tastes like the other corn. It's a little bit drier. Probably because it's not cooked.
Yeah. So what we're going to do with the corn, I think, is, well, with the exception of the one that Lee is eating raw right now, is we're going to cut it off the cob. Lee, you're making a mess. Stop it. Stop it. We're going to cut it off the cob and we're going to can it. So we'll have some canned corn. Now over here we've got the cabbage, and Lee has been cutting up the cabbage right here. He doesn't like sauerkraut, so we're not going to make a ton of sauerkraut. We will make some because Phil and I like it. But what we're going to do is cut it into steaks like this. And I don't think we even have to blanch it, honestly. We've been doing some research online, and you can just freeze the steaks like that. So we're going to vacuum seal those and freeze them, and then we'll make some, we've got 4 huge heads of cabbage, so we'll make some sauerkraut with those too. I can't find my, what's it called?
Okay.
What can I not find?
Tripod.
My tripod, thank you. I can't find my tripod right now, so I probably won't be able to videotape us actually making that. What I have here is some kale I harvested today, and this is some pork broth actually that we had made before. So I'm going to pour the pork broth in here and then put that in the Instant Pot and cook that down. And then the cucumbers. These are the weirdest cucumbers ever. This is how they grow. This is not like a dwarfed cucumber. These are like little round lemon looking cucumbers. I've never seen anything like them before. And then we have some other cool like regular ones. So I'm going to take the cucumbers and just wash them, and then we'll use them during the week for salads because we have a huge salad garden going right now. And then over here, I have a pot full of tomatoes. And what we're going to do with those is wash them, and I'm going to stew them. And then once they're stewed and kind of cooked down, all the different kinds of tomatoes, I'll just can those because I use those a ton for like chili and spaghetti sauce and things like that. I will probably actually add to that stewed tomatoes these onions here.
Maybe a little bit of corn.
And we're not going to put corn in the tomatoes. So that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to see if I can track down that tripod so that we can videotape watching or making the cabbage stuff, sauerkraut. So I'll be back. So where we're at right now is we are processing everything that I got out of the garden today. We have vacuum sealed 3 heads of cabbage, so this is just going to go straight into the freezer the way it is. The zucchini needs to be parboiled or blanched before we freeze it. So we're going to get some water boiling to blanch the zucchini. Here I have some tomatoes that I just cut up. I don't do like, that noise in the background is the vacuum sealer, by the way. I know a lot of people de-seed their tomatoes and do stuff like that. I normally just throw all of my tomatoes into a pan and put some water in there, some salt, usually some garlic, but I'm actually out of fresh garlic right now, so we'll just have to add garlic later. That's Lee with his cabbages. My cabbages! So for some reason at this moment, the gimbal just took on a life of its own and it started roaming around the kitchen. And Lee and I were not exactly sure what was going on, but I'm leaving it in here because it's kind of weird and sort of funny. And everything was upside down. So on we go. So what I was saying is that I actually just throw my tomatoes into a pot and I will stew them until they're, basically cooked. And then I can them that way. I don't generally put any seasoning or anything on them to begin with because that way I can use them for whatever I want to use them for later. And I have all this fresh oregano hanging here. So if I decide that I want to make a tomato sauce later or a spaghetti sauce, I can use the fresh oregano then. I don't need to use it now. I did leave 2 tomatoes out because we'll want to have them on sandwiches this week. And the other thing is all of this right here, all the extra pieces of cabbage that were kind of gross, or just the outside pieces that were a lot of dirt on them and stuff. All of this is going to go out to the pigs and the goats. So we'll get that taken care of. I also have some Brussels sprouts. I did save a couple of Brussels sprouts, so I'll probably just cook these for dinner tonight. The corn, what we'll do is cut it off the cob and then just can it. And then the zucchini, we're going to have to parboil that and freeze it. So that's kind of what we're working on. So we have a little change in our game plan here because we recently got a half of a cow and put it in our freezer downstairs. Plus we have all the chickens that we've harvested and still some pig from last year and a little bit of deer from last year. So basically, freezer space is becoming rare. So rather than freezing the zucchini, I'm going to make a zucchini and corn succotash kind of thing, and we're going to can that. So I'm cutting the zucchini into little bite-sized bites. And we're going to cut the corn off the cob, and then I'm going to throw it into a pan with onions from the garden, and I probably won't put any tomatoes in it because Phil sometimes doesn't do well with tomatoes. He has a little nightshade issue. So we'll just do the corn and zucchini, and then I'll go down to the basement and get some garlic. We'll have some fresh herbs, olive oil, some salt, and we'll make a nice little succotash out of that. The nice thing about that is that going forward, that whatever I can there, it doesn't have to be eaten by itself per se. I mean, you could eat it as a side dish, but more importantly, that could be a really great base ingredient for soups or stews this summer, or this winter, I mean. The zucchini tends to thicken soups and stews up a little bit, so that'd be really nice. You can just throw that in there, make like a nice hearty beef and vegetable soup. We can use some of the canned tomatoes as a base for that. Throw in the zucchini and the corn, some green beans, and some of the beef that also was raised here on the farm too. Although we're not raising it, we have a neighbor who raises it. So anyways, we can make some really nice soups or stews with that. So I'm going to continue to cut this up. We're going to use the cast iron skillet to cook the succotash up. And then once it's ready, we'll start canning everything. And then, like I said, I'm going to do some sauerkraut with the other 2 heads of cabbage that we have. So I'll get back on here and show you guys how to do that.
This is a banana.
So just kind of wanted to show everybody what's going on here. So this is the zucchini and corn, and I'm not going to cook that to where the zucchini's soft because we're going to be pressure canning it. So I'm probably just going to stop it here actually and let it go. And then here we've got our tomatoes stewing. I did throw some of the onion from the garden in there, so it's basically tomatoes and onions and salt. So we can use that in just about anything. And then here is the cabbage, and it's starting to wilt from the salt. So once we get that going, we'll show you how to put it in the jars. And then over there, Lee is finishing up with the yellow squash, and he's putting that in the freezer upstairs because we're out of room in the freezer downstairs, which is awesome. Oh, that's pretty cool. We call ourselves the idiot farmers because we like nerdy things. Well, here you go. This is what Lee bought himself when we took a trip recently. This was his souvenir. It's a Death Star ice mold, which is pretty cool. I gotta say, the sound that it's making is making me really unhappy. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. Run under a little cold water or warm water.
No, we'll ruin it.
Okay. So this is the Death Star ice.
It sometimes is spherical.
Turn around, like show the whole thing. Think of being a white thing. Very nice. What you do sauerkraut is you put your I just touched my nose, I realized that. I'm washing my hands now. My nose is itching because I spent the whole day in the garden this morning, so the whole morning in the garden. And I'm a little allergic to that stuff. So, okay, that's good. So what you do is you take your jar and you've had the cabbage sitting for about 10 minutes, long enough for the salt to kind of get into it and make it start to wilt. And then, see, my husband last year it must have been my birthday, because my birthday is during harvest season. He got me this nifty little kit that has silicone lids, weights to keep the cabbage weighted down and under the water, and then, of course, both of those fit into wide mouth ball jars. So that's been kind of nice. It's a great little tool. He just got it on Amazon. Now, you do have to, when you're doing this, leave about 3 to 4 inches of headspace at the top of your jar. So that's probably the extent of what I would put in there. So you want to push it down enough and really squish it down enough so that all that water comes to the top of the can. The water is being drawn out by the salt. So, and then once you're done with that, you just drop that weight in on top. Oops. Oh, that didn't go so well. The weight went under the water. Okay. That's okay. So now we've got the... Yeah, I think it's okay. Some of that stuff on top will have to drain out. I don't think that that's what you should do. I really don't think that's what you should do. I think that you just did something wrong there. So we're gonna try that again. I would not use the tamper to push the weight down into stuff because it's supposed to sit on top. On top. This isn't as easy as it looks. Okay, we're just gonna leave it like that. Now, we got this nice little silicone tops. They're actually vented. They're little like nipples, and you can push it and you can vent the stuff out. And then Lee's gonna go grab a ring to put on it. Are there none in that? Oh, this guy. So boom. And then what you do is you actually just set that on your countertop. Well, actually, we have a cellar downstairs. It's better to put it in a place that's cool, as cool as you can be. And then you just check on it from time to time. So, so what we're gonna do next, I'm gonna fill that up. Last year we did this and we made some cabbage or some sauerkraut, and this is it right here. Actually, it's still good. To be honest with you, we're not big sauerkraut eaters, so that's why this is still sitting here. We will probably eat this for New Year's Eve, and that's about the extent of what we'll eat sauerkraut. Now, we do have some very good friends that are Polish, and they make pierogies, and I really love sauerkraut with pierogies, so if we go and make pierogies with them again this year, then the sauerkraut might get broken out sooner. You want to do that? And this is really good. We did have another, it only made 2 jars. It doesn't make much because you squish it down so much. But we're gonna finish doing that, and then we'll put the zucchini and the tomatoes into cans, and then we'll start with pressure canning those. I do want to point out that my shirt here, it says bacon. There's a restaurant in Carnegie, Pennsylvania called Bacon, and they have a lot of bacon on their menu, and I want to just point out what the back of it says, praise the Lord. So shout out to the Bacon restaurant. We've been there 3 times now, never had a bad meal there, so if you're in Carnegie, stop by. Bye. All right, so we've got our sauerkraut ready. You want to pick that up in the camera and show them?
Sauerkraut.
That nipple reminds me of when I was a freshman in college, and I had a professor for Psych 101 who was French, and he was talking about like conditioning for infants, and he started making this weird sound like, and everybody in the class was like, what is he doing? And he goes, don't be alarmed, it is merely the sound of an infant sucking on a nipple. He was talking about how that would like make a woman have letdown when she was breastfeeding or something. It was really bizarre. But every time I see a little nipple like that, it makes me think of it. So I guess he was effective. Now, so what we're gonna do now, I have the stewed tomatoes canned. So we're gonna put some lids on those. And then right now, Lee, I'll show you. Wrong way. Lee, show them what you're doing. He's got the zucchini and corn, and he's putting those in the ball jars. I will not be canning those at the same time because they'll have to can at different for different lengths of time. But we will go ahead and can them all in our pressure canner. I have this pressure canner. It's been wonderful. I use it all the time. I've used it for about 6 years. It has a little rubber seal, and at the end of the day, I always just put some oil on this to keep it from getting dry rotted. So that's kind of what we're going to do, and when everything's all said and done, we'll show you the end result. So that's it for Idiot Farmers this week. We want to thank you for watching, and if you like, please subscribe, hit the like button. Here is the results of our canning, and we'll see you next week.